With us at Newsroom Africa, and this special broadcast coming to you live from the Nasrec Expo Center in the south of Johannesburg, where of course we're bringing you the ANC's 55th National Conference. Now, a little bit earlier we spoke to the chairperson of the Eastern Cape, the ANC in the Eastern Cape at least, Oscar Mabuyane, and now we're bringing you an interview with the chairperson of the ANC in the Eastern Cape, Mr. Sboniso Duma. Sir, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you so much with your good self and the viewers at home. But KwaZulu-Natal, not Eastern Cape. So you're still reminiscing of Eastern Cape. It's okay.
My apologies. It's just I was talking to Mr. Mabuyane earlier. You're the chairperson of the ANC in KZN. My apologies for that error, sir. I didn't mean anything by it. Yesterday, we saw quite a delay in the start of the conference. Just your opinion. What do you make of that delay?
I think it was characterized by different factors. Number one, in usual processes, there is a pre-registration that will take place. HQ will go to provinces, register all the delegates. Just in the process of the national conference, before you start the plenary, you clean the raw data, finalize it, because it will have been printed already. But this time, the entire almost 4,000 delegates, 4,000 delegates had to come. Only Nasrec can do that. So obviously, it was an ingredient for failure. It was not done nicely. KwaZulu-Natal has the biggest delegation in this conference, so they suffered the onslaught. So already, what you saw was the manifestation, because in the plenary, there was no PC leadership because they couldn't get their tag on time. So it means there was no regional leadership. They were still stuck in the registration vein. Although it's uncalled for, we must condemn, because it's not a behavior of the ANC membership. You can't just, when the president speaks, you also speaking. But you know that this current NEC was not the strongest NEC that has been produced by the ANC. So it means that there were some blockages and there were some weaknesses that must be achieved. At least the term has ended. We are starting afresh. We are renewing the mandate.
I appreciate a lot that you've mentioned there, and we'll come back to some of those themes that you've just highlighted there for us now. But obviously, HQ in this instance did not have a permanent incumbent within the office of Secretary General. So could that have played a role?
I think the reality is the first time that the ANC does not have a Secretary General. Obvious it would, because the SGO is the pillar and the center. They are there for day-to-day activities. So the ANC has been working. That's why you'll find that even the staff was not paid in some instances. So the issue of organizing committee, the issue of membership must always be there, enticing the space so that there is activism, there is stronger organization on the ground. The deployment is done on time. So it might have contributed. I hope and pray that it is the last time that the ANC, the ruling party, which is not a ruling class, by the way, will proceed without having the SGO, which is strong. Unfortunately, Comrade JC passed away. May her soul rest in peace. We had to suffer the also endurance because she played a key role when the SG was suspended.
Right, so you've now explained a little bit some of the frustration that we saw playing out in the plenary yesterday. You've also, been now just condemned some of the behavior that we saw from some of the members from KZN yesterday. What, other than condemning, what happens next? We know that yesterday, after the president's political report, they were asked to stay behind. We weren't obviously privy to that, but did you read them the riot act?
Our mind is fixated on achieving critical goals like the implementation of the resolution of the ANC, the issue of the creation of state bank, the issue of expropriation without compensation, the issue of creating of new jobs, the ICT spectre and all those things. I think our people, even these delegates, are coming from the society, so they are frustrated because they are also suffering from poverty. They are also part and parcel of inequality. The issue of unemployment is also affecting them because the majority of these comrades who are here are young people. Some are graduates of the ANC Youth League, some from SASCO. It means that as well they are gazing the direction of the country that is economically not strong, not viable, because we've attained the 94 election and political power was given or transferred to 10. Let us transition from political power to economic power now, because the power of economy in this country is controlled by minorities who are very arrogant these days, which is why we define them as white monopoly capital. They control everything. They control the means of production. That has to change. I think Solomon Mahlangu died for that. Comrade Christian's blood was not in vain, so it must be clinical. Comrade today must raise their hands, articulate what is required, the type of the leader, the caliber that is required by the society, that they must resonate. The economic outlook, character will only be resonating well with the society as long as we can go to that direction.
We know that coming into this conference, KZN has already expressed its views to say the current president of the African National Congress you guys don't believe that he should be the one that continues to take the party and maybe even the country forward. Am I right?
I think the term of office has come to an end. We are renewing the mandate. I think we want to dwell so much on that. We don't believe in character assassination. And we realize that you might find that at the end of the day, our candidate might close the conference, but it might not be the case because it's a contestation of ideas. There will be a contest. So we should be able to rally behind the vision of an elected leader. I think it is going to happen. And what we are also gunning for is the unity of the ANC. The current platoons of being inward looking is not going to assist this movement, because the reality, people on the ground, their endurance has been worn at this point in time. They've issued the warning shot in the local government. Something must be done.
What is that something that must be done? What is it? Because obviously in 20 policy conference, actually, there was a document where in that document the ANC stated itself that there exists the real possibility of losing power come 2024. So what is that something that must be done to ensure that the ANC continues to govern? Even though, obviously, we'll touch on these other issues, I think, for now, what is that something that must be done?
We need a brave leadership of the ANC who's able to implement all the resolution taken in the conference to the T. If you've been given an advantage or a mandate that collectively implement the expropriation of land without compensation, do that, don't deviate. If you've been given a mandate to create a synergy of State Bank, do that, don't compromise. Because the transformation sector of banking in our country is not to our benefit. The issue of unemployment has to the value that it's only government who's creating an enhancing environment, but the private sector is not coming to the fore. So the type of leadership must be able to articulate that position. If it means that being antagonistic to those who doesn't want change, deal with it. We want a correct leader who is going to deal with the issue of BE practice. Why don't you make sure that the majority must go ban the issue of 217 of the Constitution? Equitable, the issue of competitive edge must go towards Africans. Blacks in particular must benefit in this process. These billions must be spent at that direction.
You know, you're talking about this issue of black people being, brought into the economy. What's happening at the moment, particularly within government, we are seeing IPPs and the introduction of and bid windows and all of those things. A large number of the people that are hardest hit by the lack of electricity are also the very same people that aren't really participating in these bid windows and in these IPPs. So is that something in terms of the current dealing with the current issues of Eskom and the lack of generation capacity that KZN will be taking forward in these plenary sessions?
The reality is that Eskom has been destroyed by few individuals, and it's been done deliberate, which is why we've been calling for the head of the CEO, which is why we've been saying that even the political deployee is not doing what is critical for the ANC. Take, for instance, the Mpumalanga province. That province will be a ghost province if we have to just transition in a very haphazard manner, because they rely on coal. The issue of coal these days, go to Germany, go to England, they've turned back the issue of renewables. They are stockpiling our coal. It means that the issue of this just transition is not going to be easy. It must be us who must suffer, not really. I don't think at this point in time we've got the synergy. With energy, with coal, 194 billion on a yearly basis, and 183,000 jobs are created with coal, and we're just saying that the resource that we've been given by God, you just want to just not to elaborate on it. So I think we are there, and we are saying that we need someone who's vigilant enough to protect the sovereignty of our country. So because at this point in time, we are not sure what is going to happen in ESCOM, so let us elect a proper leader.
What happens if your candidate does not succeed, does not win, and the incumbent remains? Do you give him the support that he requires to be able to implement some of these issues that you're raising now?
I'm sure you've been following me because you're a practitioner yourself. Ntuli and I, we've been articulating the perspective that let us rally behind the vision of the ANC. We've been defending the incumbent in very awkward moment. We are just like that. ANC is a unitary organization, so we lived in KwaZulu-Natal, but we want to protect this heritage called ANC, this gigantic organization. If it does not happen now, at some point in time, the youth must inherit this ANC. It should be protected. It's an organization, the only vehicle in the continent of Africa, the only vehicle in South Africa that is going to assist the people of South Africa. So if it's like that, let us protect it.
How do you protect, for instance, the vision of the ANC and the OR? Because there's so many that are saying that the ANC, what it is today and what it was under the 30-year leadership of OR, as an example, is no longer the same. So how do you marry those two? I understand that under OR it was a liberation movement, but now it's been a governing party for the last 28 years. But surely there must be some kind of synergy that you are able to protect the African National Congress, whether as a liberation movement or as a governing party. How do you protect that legacy?
Very critical what we are outlining, the issue of liberation movement character, because it's what is currently lacking. We've become more lineage on being a ruling party which does not have property. At least you come from a very political background, Alata. So it's critical that the ANC must revive those tools. We're saying that let us go back to basics. Let us create proper branches. Let us implement the resolution, because it's the only solution that is going to revive the ANC. Elect strong leaders. These days, you've got the ANC membership that are easily misbehaving, because from the NEC we don't have the strongest leadership. The NEC members at some point in time are deviating from the practices, the culture of the ANC, and there is no consequence management. Let us revive that courage so that we are able. ANC is no longer radical enough. That is why the white monopoly capital in some instances are comfortable with some of the things and the status quo. So we must renegade and deal with those issues.
One last thing, Chair, that I want to talk about. As I'm hearing you speak, the thing that keeps on coming to my head is discipline, because it seems that all of these areas that you've outlined, it seems that there is a lack of discipline. How do you enforce that discipline? Does it come down to the leadership? Does it come down to a strong leader, as you've been saying?
I think the material condition currently is no longer enticing of a revolution. Take, for instance, the issue of Christian. In the past, if it was apartheid, the entire membership of the ANC was going to riot. We're going to march. How do you release Janus Walu, someone who almost killed democracy? But we've been tamed as there's a revolution. Let us revise the consciousness of being a strong organization. We appropriate trillions, billions on a yearly basis, but our people are not benefiting. Because in our country, it's not a scarcity of resources. It's the incapacity of disbursement and distributing the resources correctly. Build stronger branches that can defend the hegemon. It must not be the only weakness of the leadership. So it must be strong from branches up to national. Don't recruit members for the sake of members for the event. Ensure that you service the branches. Political classes are critical. Create structures that are viable, that are going to dominate the society. That's how we're going to lead the society, not through sloganeering, not only through voices.
All right. Mr. Sboniso Duma, the chairperson of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal, talking to us, basically ending it by saying fewer but better. And I think that's what he is agitating for. We appreciate his time with us in studio this morning. So we will continue with our rolling coverage of the ANC's 55th National Conference live from Nasrec. But we're going to take a quick ad break. After that, we'll do your headlines and then the other top stories of the day. For now, let's take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.